Okay, coming up next, we're moving on to our next exciting panel session. And to kickstart the panel session, we're going to play a short video as an introduction. So let's roll the video. So as you may have guessed, this panel discussion is focusing on the power of destination marketing and destination development. We're going to need some more chairs up here, gentlemen, if you don't mind. I think we're going to need maybe another 2 more chairs, please. And as the team are bringing up those chairs, I would like to introduce the moderator of this panel. The moderator of this panel is Eva Skerlitz. I hope I've pronounced that correctly. Eva is the Director of Destination Marketing for Middle East and Africa at Hilton. So please join me with a round of applause to welcome Eva to the stage.
Sorry. Great, thank you, Alex. Kudos to you for pronouncing my last name correctly. Kudos to the agency as well that put together the video that you just saw, because it was quite a difficult task compressing hours and hours of brilliant destination marketing campaigns into 90 seconds. So well done to all. So this panel is about destinations, building them, managing them, marketing them, and about organizations that stand behind those efforts. And we felt that it was important that we remind ourselves that travel and tourism take place in a very large ecosystem. And that ecosystem starts with the destination. It's very difficult for any individual hotel or even a big chain to be successful if they're operating in an underperforming destination. And in this part of the world, I think we're exceptionally lucky because we have witnessed destinations being built from scratch in a matter of years and not centuries. And the level of ambition and innovation and vision in this region when it comes to destination building, I think, is unprecedented. So today we've invited some industry champions from various backgrounds and organizations to join us on the stage. So please, let's welcome from the UK, Nicholas Hall, the CEO of Digital Tourism Think Tank. Up next, Alka Winter, Vice President, Destination Marketing, Ras Al Khaimah Tourism Development Authority. And finally, Liam Findlay, the CEO of Mural Destinations. Brilliant. Thank you all for joining. Now, you come from different backgrounds, and I think each of you brings a unique perspective to this panel. Nick, you're managing one of the leading global DMO consultancies and think tanks. You work with DMOs across the globe. You've just finalized first of its kind, robust research into DMOs in collaboration with Sojourn. We'll be referencing some of the findings from that research today, but also the full version is available on DTTT's website. Alka, you come from a destination that's a rising star. You've hit record numbers last year. You're looking to exceed that this year in terms of visitors. You have a very ambitious pipeline of new hotel brands and rooms coming into your destination. And on top of that, I don't know if you knew, but CNN Travel found ROC to be Destination of the Year for 2024. And then finally, Liam, Miral, along with DCT, Etihad, and others, truly transformed Abu Dhabi from a place, let's be honest, where you wouldn't necessarily have a lot of reason to travel 10 years ago, to a place that's now buzzing with activities and attractions. And if you look at Yas and Saadiyat Island alone, they're both destinations in their own right. So incredibly successful stories. So we thought we would deep dive into the role of DMOs behind these success stories. Now, let's hope that the slides are working and that they can bring them up for us, because what I wanted to show you is I quickly looked at Google Trends to understand how the search evolved for Abu Dhabi and ROC as destinations. So this basically shows us the amount of interest that there is in the context of travel around these destinations. And the growth trajectories that you see here are exceptional. For most destinations, these lines are more or less flat. You would see 1 to 2 percentage points growth year over year, not taking into account COVID when things were heavily disrupted. But what they've managed to accomplish in these two destinations really is remarkable. So let me start with you, Liam. How do you think DMOs contributed to this growth and success? What do you think was key there? And would you agree that they've evolved over time to reflect more commercially minded objectives in order to be able to get where they are today?
Yeah, I think from my example, like when you look at Morale Destinations, we're a DMO, but we're probably a different kind of DMO. And we're seeing that very much a trend in the market. When you look at like similar what London's done with their DMO, with New York done with their DMOs, what we call is a PPP, so a private-public partnership. So not that traditional under the government. We're a private company supporting the kind of the government, the public landscape. What the big difference is, what Morale Destinations and other DMOs is, we're really commercially focused. So it's not so much about long-term brand building, it's about what is the commercial impacts today. I'll give you an example. So we look after the brand of two destinations, Yas Island and Saadiyat, but what we also do is we sell the destinations. So we also have a kind of a DMC kind of component to it. Just this year, we'll sell about 120,000 room nights into our destinations. Yeah, so we are the #1 room provider on Yas Island and Saadiyat, which is not traditionally DMO, that you're actually producing rooms through your channels, so either through our website or our overseas offices and so forth. And we do that for our partners. We don't take commission, we don't put a markup to it. It's just providing value to our partners. And I think that's where the big difference, what we're seeing with what we do in Morale Destinations. And I do think the industry is going to go to that. So I think where we're seeing in the future is that the KPIs around DMOs need to be more commercially minded. I would say 90% of my KPIs have a commercial outcome to it.
Great. And Alka, moving on to you, you moved from hospitality to a tourism authority. What was your biggest learning? What is it that you wish you'd known while you were still on the hospitality side, and how would you compare the mindset and the objectives between the two?
Well, when I moved over to tourism and the tourism authority, what I realized is hospitality goes beyond hotels. So I've been with Accor, Fairmont Raffles for almost 20 years. And being on, I guess you would say, the other side, I would love to see more communication coming from the hotels, the attractions, the DMCs, the partners. We conduct quarterly stakeholder meetings. We're always in contact with the hotels. Sometimes it can feel a bit one-sided, so I would welcome also hotels being on that side as well, showcasing what your plans are, where you might need help, where we can amplify your efforts and see it as more of a collaboration.
Do you feel that your organization has evolved through COVID in the way that you measure success, and has it reflected on your org structure, the type of people you hire, the capabilities that you're looking for?
Absolutely, and I think this is something we were talking about. COVID put the DMO on its head. The way we did things had to change. We had to be resilient, agile, and pivot. When COVID struck in 2020, we were the first tourism board to come up with a very comprehensive stimulus package for our hotels. We also worked on certifying the destination as being a safe destination so that our partners would see that we were open, we were safe to travel to. In addition to that, we also reconnected with our airlines. We re-energized those airline collaborations, knowing that 70% of the people who land in a destination in our airport stay in the destination. So for us, that was low-hanging fruit. And lastly, we also provided free PCR testing for visitors. We took care of that cost. And as a result, we have something that we say that we did bad better in the office, because it was such a challenging time. And according to UNWTO, tourism globally fell by about 75%. In Ras Al Khaimah, the dip was not as deep. It was about 12%. So we did bad better. And the results you can see as of last year, we had a complete tourism rebound. We welcomed 1.13 million visitors to the destination. That superseded pre-pandemic. That's the highest we ever had. So I think as a tourism community, we learned to be more nimble. The people that we bring on board also have that mindset that we'll be able to do the long game, but as well pick up and take things forward.
Yeah, I find it that I still find myself, I think, explaining too often what the value is of working with DMOs for a hospitality company in particular. I don't think that's necessarily obvious to everyone. And Nick, no one works with more DMOs than you do, and you've just finished a very robust research on the subject. What have you observed in terms of the function and the purpose and the operation of DMOs across the globe, I'd say since COVID until today?
First of all, I think you started out really nicely there. DMOs are very misunderstood sometimes, and sometimes there's a huge void between DMOs and industry, which of course there shouldn't be. I think what we've seen from our survey, from our work with DMOs around the world, is a huge shift, especially since before the pandemic to now, to become much more commercially minded, to be much more accountable, and much more transparent to their stakeholders about the sort of results that they can drive. DMOs have traditionally worked at the top of the funnel, building a brand, building inspiration and positioning for the destination, which is of course really important. And that's where DMOs, especially the best ones, and I think we have the best ones here in the room today, can really build on their strengths of creativity, of building the destination's image through amazing content, but also developing product propositions. But that needs to be supported with commercial results. ROI needs to be really demonstrated very clearly in the work of destinations. And they are not necessarily wired to do that. So that's where the collaboration and partnership with industry is really important. And we're seeing a big shift happening right now, a big culture shift, and a big change in the way that destinations approach their global marketing strategies.
If we can actually have the slides back up, we can support that with some of your research.
Yeah, so we interviewed and surveyed more than 300 destinations globally. This comprised of a large share between North America and Europe. And we asked the destinations what their main priorities were strategically. Unsurprisingly, COVID slipped right off the radar, so I think this will be the last time we talk about COVID. It's now something of the past. But if you look at the middle, we see seasonality, or extending the season, as by far the most important priority for destinations to focus on. This is perhaps something that we see even stronger in Europe. And I think it really speaks to where destinations see their role. It's not driving demand where there's already demand. It's not promoting the most famous attractions. We recently had a talk at our event from Athens, and they said, we do not promote the Acropolis because there's already a lot of demand there. And so destinations see their role in driving demand in the pockets where it hasn't yet been developed, where there's opportunity to grow. That's not only within the destination in terms of spreading visitors, but it's also thinking about seasonality and really targeting the low season where there's still lots of opportunity to grow.
And it's across the full funnel now, right? It's
Absolutely.
not just at the top.
Absolutely. So I think this is where we've seen the biggest shift. So when I started working with destinations, it was all top of funnel. It was all building a brand and measuring that brand impact through things like recall surveys. Today, we see a huge shift, something that I honestly didn't expect to see when we conducted this survey. And we could see that 80% on average of destinations are actively running co-op, full funnel marketing campaigns together with industry. And I think this really speaks to the shift that's happened, where destinations, of course, are traditionally public sector organizations. They need to be able to demonstrate the results of their activities, but now more and more they can do that together with their industry partners by driving bookings, driving revenue results that of course the industry is looking for. And here we can see who destinations consider their primary partners when it comes to those activities. I think perhaps what's more interesting is to identify where there's still opportunities to grow that. So if you see retail, for example, retail and fashion is very low down. Also sports, and also just generally non-travel brands. I always point to Switzerland as a good example of a destination that's built relationships with automotive, with fashion. Companies like Victorinox are really strong partners of the destination. And I think this is also key because these are major export brands. So great collaboration, but still plenty of opportunities to grow that.
Let's stay with the collaboration point. Liam and Elka, how do you see the sector, particularly hospitality, working with you better? What can we do to amplify your efforts and vice versa to ensure that ultimately the end customer sees an aligned vision of the destination and goes all the way through the funnel?
Yeah, just comment on this one. I think one thing is for myself at Morale Destinations, we invest a lot in co-op marketing. Not only does it drive the ROI, which you can get that kind of commercial outcome, but it's also a brand builder. As a marketing campaign, you can put all these wonderful marketing campaigns, but you're never going to have budget big enough to go into the broader reach, whereas using your partners gives you that ability to get that brand out further. So not only does it provide the commercial outcomes, but it also provides brand reach. And I think it's something which I see is still a bit underrated in the market. Yeah, for us, this is one of the big components. When it comes to how can, it's not just hotels, but the whole industry. I talk about hotels, as I was explaining before, we're also, not only do we do the brand of our destinations, Yas Island and Saadiyat, we also sell them. So we're, as I said, we're doing about over 100,000 room nights into the destination through our systems, our distribution systems. What we've seen is the success of Yas Island in the last 12 to 18 months is that now we've got to a point where the ADRs get to a point where we can't attract certain nationalities. I think when you look at countries like regions like probably India, probably Eastern European, we just don't have the ADRs too expensive, or we don't have the rooms available. So what we're seeing on Yas Island particularly is that we're now expanding out. So whereas probably previously we're selling about 5% of our rooms off island, this year 30% of our rooms sold will be off island. And we see that year after year. The thing with Yas Island is that we have some amazing IP products, and that's where as a destination, it's not about just capturing the kind of the guest on our destination. When we look at the theme parks, something like 28% of all attendance from the theme parks come from hotels now. Whereas you look probably pre-COVID, that was probably about 10. Yeah. So the extension for us on Yas Island, it's vital that we not only look at the hotels on Yas and Saadiyat, but we go beyond that to Abu Dhabi and Dubai. Something we're actually going to be launching in about a week's time is that when you look at other destinations within probably Abu Dhabi coming to Yas Island, the biggest barrier to come down as a day visitation is the cost of travel. It's about 700 to 800 dirhams to taxi down there. So as of next week, we're going to put 40 buses on. So we have a team of buses going around Abu Dhabi, Saadiyat, Dubai, shifting them down there to remove the cost of barrier. So it's really working with our hotels to see who really want to partner with Yas Island and Saadiyat. I think the key, and this is where we're seeing the industry, is unless you work with your partners, you're never going to be successful. Hotels are the number one partner. Yeah? And that's where you can see the instant results of your hard work. Yeah.
That's an encouraging message. Alka, your thoughts?
No, I echo that. Hotels are extremely important, and it's so important to have their buy-in. When we were looking at the destination coming out of COVID, we were thinking, how do we position the brand? What do we want to be known for? How are we different but complementary to the other Emirates? So we conducted a range of focus groups with our hotels, with our overseas partners, media, DMCs, and tour operators, and asked them, what does Ras Al Khaimah stand for you? What should we be moving forward? And we all thought the results would be, you're an adventure hub, you're an adventure HQ because you've got the longest zip line, you've got hiking trails. And we were a bit hesitant thinking, okay, if we receive this news, it's not exactly how we want to be pigeonholed. But surprisingly, nature came up. All of them said that nature comes top of mind for our emirate. We're the northern emirate. We have this beautiful ecosystem, a mountain, desert, sea, something that the other emirates don't have. So let's capitalize on that. And then the other attributes that came were leisure. We are a leisure destination. Culture and authenticity rounded out that list. So it was only working with the hotels were we able to build our brand, the Nature Emirate. And you can see that everywhere. Our visual representation is what I have here. It's called the Rakashida. So in Arabic, Kashida means calligraphy that connects letters. This is the Rakashida. We appropriated it so that it connects mountain, desert, and sea. And when we go on roadshows and workshops with our hotel partners in over 20 markets, despite languages and such, it's relatable, it's easy to understand, and it really reflects everybody's buy-in. So I think that's critical for us.
If I can just add, I think what we're talking about here is creating differentiation and commercial demand. And I think this is where destinations are really an important part of that mix because they can invest in that differentiation. They can be the best storytellers, the most creative element of the campaign comes right at the top of the funnel. And then with those co-op partners, it's really then about driving demand and converting on that interest. And so those two are really needed because the industry will struggle to justify that really top of funnel brand building. It's very hard to see the short-term commercial results that, of course, industry also wants to see.
Example to that, so we have a brand ambassador in India, Ranveer Singh, which big marketing campaign, but all the conversion happens at the partner level. So that campaign, though it was a big B2C campaign, also had a B2B campaign part to it because you had to make sure that you're in the market at the right time with your partners to convert what you're doing at the brand level. Yeah? So, and underrated partners are the most important part of our business, I think. Yeah.
Let's stay with the differentiation message for a bit, and if I can have the slides back, I'll show you a visual that, to me, sums it up. Whenever I go to a trade show, I can't help but think that there is a massive sea of sameness among destinations, and that at times it's very difficult to have a clear USP, a clear understanding of why I should go, for example, to Croatia as opposed to Italy or Greece or Malta or any of the other Mediterranean ones. And the Helsinki example is up there. I like how Scandinavians are not afraid to engage in this self-deprecating humor. They're not afraid to address head-on the perceptions that are out there and to stand out. And I'm not saying that's the only way to go about it, but it is something that you would remember. Alka and Liam, how do you go about breaking through this clutter? And how controversial can you be, right? All things considered, being culturally relevant here, how can you ensure that people know exactly why to go to Iraq as opposed to Oman, or why to go to Abu Dhabi as opposed to Dubai or any other place?
Yeah, love that campaign. I think it was one of my favorite campaigns. Yeah. I think when we look at what we've done in the past is that, and you saw with COVID, is that everyone came out with every destination, every city, every country, every mini destination in the world went out after COVID, going out with campaigns. I think what COVID really showed governments and organizations how important tourism is GDP to a country. So a lot of it had to restart. Yeah? And the market is flooded at the moment. I know we're going through a rebound period, but it also gave an opportunity to us to reshape what the landscape was. For us at Yas and Sadia, you need to create good content. As they say, content is king. For us, it was about creating cut-through. There is so much clutter out there, and literally you can take someone's destination ad, probably take the logo out, and probably look like 5 or 10 different destinations. Yeah, so to create that memorable, you need to create big, impactful campaigns. And I think if you see the kind of Yas Island campaigns, it's either through the CEO with Kevin Hart or Jason Moore this year, or with kind of really picked on the musical kind of theme with like what TikTok's doing and things like that with our Miami band, which was in GCC campaign, or Ranveer Singh in India. It's creating really, really good content. One thing I see within the industry, it's not just in DMOs, but it's also in the whole industry, not enough investment is done in content. Yeah. When you look at what our campaigns, and probably the ones we remembered by most, like the Jason Moore, Kevin Hart, a lot of the budget's actually on the content side than not on the actual, on the marketing side, because you create that viral effect. People share it. I'll give an example. Probably not everyone's seen it, but Miami Band was a GCC campaign, so it was an Arabic campaign. It was shared more than it was liked. Yeah? And that's where you share it to one person, another 1,000 people see it. So it's about creating content to create that cut through.
Alka, your thoughts?
Well, in Ras Al Khaimah, we don't have the biggest budgets, so we have to be very smart, very creative, very intuitive. And yes, the destination is beautiful. We're the nature emirate. You've seen these sweeping drone shots. We work with content makers like Beautiful Destination, who also amplify our content. But a couple of weeks ago, we decided to do something different. We launched a campaign called The Most Relaxed Cat in the World. We took a big risk because I love dogs. I have 3 German Shepherds. And when this idea was pitched, we're like, okay, it's not what we're used to. But then we did the research. So ad campaigns that feature mascots are 37% better positioned to gain market share. That wasn't enough. So we decided to run YouGov surveys in our key markets that we're going to distribute this campaign in. So we ran that campaign, our cat campaign, alongside 2 really good but very safe options. And the score for the cat campaign went up 90%, especially in Germany. So we thought, okay, let's go with this. We also had the added angle that our cat was based on a real-life cat that lived in Ras Al Khaimah, Zen Kitty, who had a huge Instagram following in the community. Unfortunately, this cat passed away, and we were in contact with family saying, you know, this is our inspiration, are you fine with that? And they loved it. And we're also doing a merchandising line that helps the proceeds go to the RAC Animal Shelter, working with the Higher College of Technology to take this campaign and to reinvent it. So there's a lot of community touch points. And as a result, in the last couple of weeks, it's done really well, 40 million impressions. CTR, so the click-through rate, is 0.33%. That's higher than the industry standard, which is about 0.2%. The VTR on TikTok was 98%. And we worked with a Hollywood producer that was in advanced CGI. So we're really proud of the product. It's capturing people's attentions. It's cutting through the noise. It's not the traditional stuff that you see from us. So we're really excited by that.
Great, love that campaign. Nick, your thoughts, anything super creative you've seen recently? And we don't have the time to play the video that's in here, but any thoughts around how DMOs can break through the
Absolutely.
clutter?
Well, I think what we just heard is it's so important to get cut through. We're in the attention economy. This is what everybody in media and branding talks about. We have very, very minimal time to engage, even a matter of 1 or 2 seconds on social feeds. So it has to be relevant for the audience. And I think that that's a mindset shift that we also need to make when we think about our brands, because we naturally want to put those beautiful, sweeping scenes out there. But this is what we're proud of. It's not necessarily what our audience will engage with. So the video, which we don't have time to show, is of 2 Man City fans that go in search of Haaland's home, one of the strikers for Man City, in the least visited town in Norway called Bryn. And it's just so humorous because the style of it is very, very, how can I say, it's kind of off the cuff, it's very humorous, it's very rough and ready. And the whole decision to do this from Visit Norway, who were behind the campaign, was to show the least visited place in Norway, where, frankly, nobody would want to visit, or so it's presumed. But these 2 Man City fans are just in love with this town, everything about it. They meet the mayor, they go to the Chinese restaurant, or Chinese takeaway, actually, I think it is, where he used to go to meet the owners. And it's just something you really would not expect from a destination. And that kind of humor, that kind of way of telling the story is an amazing example of connecting with the audience, because you're giving the audience what they want. And I think this is really key, is when we work across, whether it's TikTok or whatever channels, we need to make sure we understand who the audience is and what kind of content we need to feed them, and be user-driven in that sense, and then find a way to connect with our content, with our brand. And of course, that example is also meeting the destination's goal, which is to spread the value of tourism. The least visited town in Norway, perhaps it's not a place that anybody's ever heard of, but if they can put it on the map and they can create interest and appeal for people to visit Norway, then they're also helping to spread the value of tourism beyond those iconic places in Norway, such as the fjords or the Northern Lights, which obviously it's really famous for. So I think that's a great example, and I'm sure we can share the link afterwards.
Definitely, and I agree with all of you. It's very difficult to stand out if you're always playing it safe and going for the same motives, same images, same themes.
The Nordics, they really know how to take risks, and
Yeah.
I guess there's a cultural element, but finding that way to build personality, to build humor, and to be able to laugh at yourself, like this example here, being able to say what you don't do well, and why you might not want to visit. I think that's just as much as also promoting, obviously, the USPs.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not necessarily about being humorous, but it's about finding that personality of your brand and destination and making sure it comes through. One final question, but it's an important one. We live in a world of multiple crises, I think more so in this region, but also multiple opportunities, especially if you look at what's happening on the tech front, very, very exciting developments. What do you think is the next big bet for your organizations, and how do you go about, on the one hand, long-term planning for the opportunities that are there, but then managing any crises that present themselves in the short term?
Yeah, I think our industry is probably one of the most experienced industries when it comes to crisis. I think we get impacted first. It happens, and if it's worldwide, we've got so many different source markets, and one source market might go. I think with crisis, always what it does is also gives you opportunity. And the probably example I can give is COVID. It was a black swan event, so none of us had experience for it. And from what we saw is that it was going to be from our data very early on, we saw it was going to be a 2 to 3 year kind of life cycle of COVID. Yeah, what we did in that time, we said, we're not going to worry for the next 2 years. We're going to focus on relaunching the destination when there's time to travel. We saw that there was an opportunity that if we come out strong, that we could leapfrog other destinations. So what we did was we increased our budgets. So we saved our budget, so we saved 90% of our budget through that 2 years, so we had a big budget to come back out of. We didn't let go of any staff, which was unusual within our industry. And when we relaunched, we came out really big. And when you saw the Kevin Hart staff, the Jason Morrow, Round V, that was all filmed during COVID, yeah? It wasn't easy filming things during COVID. But what it allowed us is to come out really strong, yeah? Our numbers into the theme parks this year is 100% up on 2019 numbers. Yeah, so I know the whole industry is doing well, but we're at 100% increase on 2019. And the number one reason is because we took the opportunity during a crisis and look forward to see how we can benefit from it.
Brilliant. Alka?
I think from our perspective, we really huddle down when crisis hits and taking care of our tourism community. In light of inflation, geopolitical issues, COVID. I mean, Europe had the hottest summer this summer than it did in 500 years. So there's so many things at stake. An example that comes to mind, early last year, Kazakhstan is our second largest source market. And we had tourists that were stranded in the destination because back home there were political issues, bank accounts were being frozen, they couldn't get a flight, they couldn't pay. So as a tourism board, we moved quickly. We took care of everyone's stay for the next number of days until things got resolved. So this is the beauty of what we do. We can come to the rescue, which is really exciting, and take care of our community. And I think this is where what Liam was saying, don't underestimate the value that B2B partners have. With the fires in Greece this summer, the tourists that got out were the ones who booked through a travel agent, through tour operators. They got them out, they got refunded. So in this world that we navigate in, yes, we can look at the full funnel, but partners are really important.
We're an industry that understands crisis, right? This is not something that shocks us as an industry. We understand how to handle it. I remember looking back at the banking crisis in 2008, and we were having calls all the time to try and see how we address that and how we respond to that. And
remember the volcano eruption over in Iceland when there were no flights over Europe for weeks?
But I would say since that point, and COVID included, as an industry, we've been very, very, very reactive. And we've learned how to be very dynamic in what we do and adapting what we do. And of course, sometimes that means a market is entirely cut off. Sometimes that means disruption. But it's important, as Liam was saying, to continue to invest in the brand no matter what, because all of the research has shown that tourism will always return. The demand is always there. And it's one of the very first parts of, let's say, disposable income, which we go to is travel and tourism, because it's just something that's so important to everybody personally. And I think one of the things I would say is to think ahead as well. So we didn't get much time to discuss, but think about new technologies and how new technologies can also connect us. XR, mixed reality, I would say is an area that we're perhaps not looking at enough right now, and it's something that's going to really, really take off. And so I think this is definitely a really interesting competitive front that we can invest in now. We can think about spatial video, for example, and we can get our brand in front of audiences first and create that differentiator. So whether they can travel tomorrow or whether they might be traveling a little bit later, we're ready to create that inspiration and welcome them, and to just continue to make that investment in the brand because it's so important.
Great. I think we'll have Nick over as well next year to see if he was right about the whole mixed reality thing. Thank you so much for joining us today. I know it was an effort for some of you. I know Liam doesn't like to brag about the achievements, but it was a true pleasure. And I think if we can all think about how we collaborate with DMOs more closely and amplify those efforts, and I think everyone will benefit from that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.